Alright, let's get back to what I was talking about. How the union and the government kind of plan to take over the world. Okay, now that you understand why union can't be used, nor can the word united be used in the sense of a worker and whatnot, because even united stands for that which is uh, united against something bad. And when you turn around and you say that a government's bad, I mean, now a business government, which, like I said, they're not a government, the U.S., because of the fact of business can't go into government. It can't handle government stuff. It can't handle employment. It can't handle, certain things. So, as far as the U.S., it's an unfounded country that's just running itself. Now, the interesting part of it is the White House actually belongs to me, so that's one. Now, the Pentagon used to be the old Chrysler building, where a bunch of bunch of people got hurt. 455 murders minimum. Person that did it took it and literally took a paintbrush and brushed it all over the walls of the Pentagon and said, okay, now, I made a statement. I don't want you guys in this building, or I don't want you using the Chrysler building and whatnot. And it turns around that United States, or Chrysler, after the guy that owned it died, sold it to the so-called U.S. government, which is interesting because the U.S. government just slapped a coat of paint over top of the blood and said, fuck it. So, once again, you get into, not a, you get into buildings that you shouldn't be doing that stuff to. So, but anyway, let's get back to it. So now that the union turns around, you've seen all the union videos. You go on YouTube, you go into every place that doesn't support a union, and they're like, oh, I don't support a union, this, that, and the other thing. But you turn around, you go into another building that's a union with union workers, and then all of a sudden you kind of say, okay, I'm putting two to two together. You have one person that looks like the guy in that union company, and then you got another one in a non-union company that look very, very similar. Okay, that's as far as the Social Security standpoint, that is what they call duplicate identification. And the Arabs like to do this. They like sometimes to duplicate themselves, but China really does. China and Japan really do have a problem with enshrining people to where you can make a duplicate of someone. Now, now they like to say Egyptian, but I like to say Chinese. When you enshrine someone, you just put them in a jail cell inside someone else. So why would a union want to duplicate themselves? Well, if you can make $38,000 at an aviation company, then turn around at AT&T. You can get a $955 job, which is probably about 21,000 to let's say about 18,000 to 21,000. That's two forms of income. So right there, you got like close to 60,000, if not 60,000 dollars. Now, what does this do? Well, one thing of it is the union will turn around and they will try to engulf a non-business. It's illegal to stand outside a business and try to sell by soliciting, or what they like to call panhandling. Panhandling is where you go into a river and sift for gold. So it's not exactly panhandling. It's illegal solicitation. You can't solicit, unions are not allowed to solicit employment outside of their union hall. So don't bother going outside of businesses and trying to say, oh, join the union. It's also called harassment. It's also called, in other standpoints, defamation of character. It's also destruction and trespassing of a business. by diminishing their integrity. You can even go to the part where some of these unions on video got into beating the shit out of people. Once again, a union cannot represent you in a court of law. When you're a union, if Tom Peter Hensel over there gets arrested for beating the shit out of someone because he's in a union, guess what? All of you are going to jail. Not just one, all of you. The law states all of you will go to jail. Now, what's the other part of a union is locking out people. So you walk into a union company, if you ain't union, you ain't working. Well, I had that law changed. Now a union can work right alongside a non-union employee. And the reason for this is because we do not need unions to protect people. That's the job of a monarch, to protect people in business. As well as, well, I don't use politicians. So I use people more like the British Interpol, British intelligence, Russian KGB, the Kremlin, Germany, to protect people. I would walk in, find out what's going on and say, okay, well, you keep this up, you're going to jail. Bottom line. But anyway, unions like to engulf business, so they'll send their children out to AT&T, Verizon, which are non-union. Most of them are non-union, and they'll sit there and pressure people, So you got 50 people and one supervisor who isn't in the union, and they'll sit there and they'll make threats and everything. And it is possible to make a threat to someone without ever verbalizing it and whatnot. And that's what they call a person that's pulled from themselves. Like I said, the Chinese like to do this. They're not 1 billion strong like some people like to think they are. There's 795 million people in China, so that tells you a lot of people over there are messed up trying to make a living. Now, as far as people electing leaders and stuff, like I said, you guys aren't doing nothing. If anything, you got an army, the U.S. military running over, shooting people in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, threatening China, threatening other countries, saying, we'll bring a mission in to help you guys, but you guys have to do this to keep the mission. That's not a form of peaceful practice, and neither is a peaceful law that's being practiced here. It's a form of intimidation, saying, I want someone inside your country all the time. The U.S. doesn't own anything. You don't even own North America. You don't own the soil you're sitting on. You sit there and you pay $575,000 for a piece of land that's 50 acres. You don't own the minerals there. To knock your shit off. But anyway, when the union goes in and the government allows it, because guess what? Half the people and the politicians, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the Congress all have money in all these businesses. Back in 1982, the law stated that no congressman, no representative of the state, nor a senate of a state or congressman of a state can have stocks. Can't have stocks, can't have bonds, can't have a company. You work inside what they refer to as a government, and you do right by the people. Yeah, well, that all of a sudden changed, because I know a lot of those people in there are union, and I know a lot of the brown senators that sit there, or the House of not the House of Representatives, but the representatives of states sit there, and I know they're union. I know who their other half is too that's running around. I mean, this may sound weird, but doppelganger is no more than the same person who tears himself apart by religious practice or by occult practice, by allowing someone else to assume the other half of them as they assume the other half of themselves. So if you tear yourself apart, make two of yourself, you put your friend in behind you, and you're out in front by half, and then the other one's half that remains half. So, okay, so we got people running nuclear facilities, so-called nuclear facilities, who are half themselves. People making cars who are half themselves. One thing is unions were proved by the Kremlin, the KGB, and British intelligence of brainwashing people. It's the same shit every time you walk into a union. You must support the union. No, I don't. You say you live in a land of freedom, right? No, you don't. You live under our monarchs. Like it or not, you're going to have to suck it up and grow up. So, now that that's said, I'll tell you this. Buy a laptop at Best Buy or any freaking computer place. You'll see your little Bluetooth pop up. If you don't ever use it within 3 to 4 months, you'll probably see it disappear off the right-hand side of your computer using Windows. Apple doesn't seem to have this problem as much, but Windows does. Then you go back and look for your Bluetooth, and all of a sudden, you can't find the app for your Bluetooth hardware. That's because someone who probably down the road or even in a company is watching you. They're flat out watching you. The other part of it is when your phone starts, you hold your phone there and your phone starts flying